Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're diving deep into something we all think about eventually, how our memories change as we get older.
It's one of those topics that can be, well, confusing, right? And sometimes a little scary, maybe.
Definitely. But these resources we're looking at today are specifically for older adults and their families, so hopefully we can make it a little less overwhelming.
Yeah, and I think that's key, arming ourselves with good information.
Exactly. So for this deep dive, we've got Medline Plus's Ayudas para la Memoria,
Okay, great resource.
and then two from the Mayo Clinic.
Hmm.
Perdida de memoria. 7 consejos para mejorar la memoria. En pérdida de memoria. ¿Cuándo se debe buscar ayuda?
Yeah, those are both really practical.
And then, of course, we can't forget the NIH.
Always got to have the NIH.
Always. We're looking at their article, Una mente bien envejecida, for a broader perspective. Because, honestly, memory changes affect everyone, either personally or through someone we love.
Absolutely. And what I like about these sources is that, they don't just give you tips. They actually try to explain what's happening in our brains as we age, which I think is super important for understanding the why behind the advice.
It's not just about what to do, but why it matters. So let's start with something we all experience those times. We forget things. Is every forgotten name or appointment a sign of something serious? I mean, I do that all the time.
Right. We've all been there. And I think the Mayo Clinic articles do a really good job of distinguishing between normal aging and, when there might be something more going on.
Yeah, they give a lot of examples that people might recognize from their own lives.
Exactly.
They say forgetting a name but then remembering it later is pretty common.
Yeah, that tip of the tongue phenomenon, it's frustrating in the moment, but it doesn't necessarily mean, it's a sign of dementia or something.
But then how do we know? What are those red flags that it might be more than just a normal aging thing?
Well, the Mayo Clinic has a pretty comprehensive list, actually.
Oh, good. Let's hear it.
Okay, so they say to watch out for things like asking the same questions repeatedly, forgetting common words like everyday words, struggling with tasks you used to do easily.
Right, right.
Oh, and misplacing things a lot. We all misplace things sometimes, but if it's happening all the time, that could be a sign.
Okay, that makes sense.
And even getting lost in familiar places.
Oh, wow. That's scary.
Yeah, and they also emphasize not to overlook changes in mood. Sometimes those can be connected to underlying cognitive changes.
It's not just about memory itself, but how it affects your whole life.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
That's a lot to keep in mind, but I'm glad they're clear about those warning signs.
Because really, the bottom line is, if you or a loved one is experiencing any of these, don't just brush it off,
Right. Don't just say, oh, it's a senior moment.
Right, exactly. Talk to a doctor, get it checked out. It's always better to be safe than sorry.
Absolutely. So let's shift gears a little bit and talk about what we can do, right? Because Medline Plus and the Mayo Clinic have a lot of great advice on supporting our brains as we age.
Yeah, and the cool thing is, a lot of it is actually backed by science. It's not just grandma's home remedies. We know why these things help.
Like both of them talk about physical activity.
Oh, absolutely. It's not just good for your body.
It's good for the brain, too.
Yeah, it gets that blood flowing, which is essential for, well, everything your brain does.
So it's not just about, staying fit or looking good. It's about keeping your mind sharp, too.
Exactly.
And they also mention mental exercises like doing puzzles.
Oh, yeah, all sorts of things. Puzzles, learning new things, Medline Plus even specifically mentions reading as a way to keep your brain active.
Makes sense. It's like a workout for your brain.
Hmm.
So instead of lifting weights, we're learning Spanish.
Right, exactly. You're learning to play the piano or, I don't know, trying a new recipe.
I love the way Medline Plus talks about visual cues, too. Things like labeling drawers or putting pictures with names next to the phone. It's so practical.
And, those can make such a difference, especially as we get older.
They're good for anyone, really.
They are, but I think it's especially helpful as we age because, well, it's sort of acknowledging that, maybe some parts of our brains aren't as sharp as they used to be.
Right.
But we can use other strengths to compensate, right?
It's like finding workarounds for your brain. I love that.
Exactly.
Exactly. Speaking of things that support brain health, the Mayo Clinic talks a lot about sleep, diet, and overall health.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's the foundation for everything, right?
Like, they directly connect poor sleep to memory problems. And they're not just talking about, how much sleep you get. It's about the quality of that sleep, too.
Oh, yeah, for sure. We need those deep sleep cycles. That's when our brain really gets to, recharge and process everything from the day.
Right. So having a good bedtime routine, a calm bedroom environment, and I guess dealing with any Sleep issues, if you have those, like sleep apnea.
Yeah, all of that can play a role. And then there's diet, right? The Mayo Clinic is all about eating plenty of fruits and vegetables, whole grains,
Mhm.
nourishing your brain.
Good fuel.
Exactly. Good fuel for your brain.
You also say not to drink too much alcohol.
Oh, yeah, they're not fans of heavy drinking. It really messes with your thinking, especially as you get older. It's just about being mindful of how much you drink.
Yeah, and knowing your limits, right?
Right, knowing your limits.
It sounds like the message is to think about our well-being as a whole, not just focusing on memory in isolation.
Yeah, it's all interconnected. Physical health, mental health, even our social lives. It all contributes to a healthy brain.
It's holistic. I love that approach.
Me too. It's not just about one thing.
So before we move on, I do want to point out that the Mayo Clinic also says that not all memory issues are due to aging or dementia.
Oh, that's huge. There's hope.
There is. There are actually some reversible causes.
Right. So if you're having problems, it's not necessarily, a life sentence. There might be things you can do to get back on track.
Like they mentioned, certain medications can affect memory. I honestly had no idea.
It's true. And that's why it's so important to, be open with your doctor.
Oh, absolutely. Tell them about everything you're taking.
Exactly, because sometimes a simple change in medication can make a huge difference.
And then another one that surprised me was vitamin B12 deficiency. I never knew that could impact memory.
Yeah, that's a good example of how, our bodies are complex. And sometimes even seemingly small imbalances can have a really big impact, especially on the brain.
So that brings us back to that point. If you notice any sudden or concerning changes, don't ignore them.
Right. Talk to your doctor. Don't just assume it's, oh, I'm just getting older.
Because it might be something else entirely, something that's treatable.
Exactly. Early detection and intervention can be so, so important.
Speaking of things that can make us vulnerable, the NIH article brought up this really interesting point about older adults being targeted by scams.
Yeah, that's a big one, unfortunately. It's so sad.
It is. Because we gain so much wisdom and experience as we age.
We do.
But I guess some of the changes in our brains can make us maybe a little more susceptible to manipulation.
That's right. Especially when it comes to things like finances,
Yeah. It's heartbreaking to think that there are people out there who would take advantage of that.
It is. And it's not just about being careful. I mean, we all should be careful. But the NIH article actually suggests that a decreased awareness of scams can itself be a sign of cognitive decline.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it has to do with changes in the way our brains process social information. So it's kind of a double whammy, right?
It's not just that we have to be more cautious, but that we might not even realize we need to be.
That's right. And it's a good reminder that, aging doesn't have to mean cognitive decline. Yes, there are changes, but the NIH article also talks about the cognitive strengths that come with age, which I think is really important.
Right. Because it's easy to focus on the negative, to think it's all downhill from here.
Exactly. So while certain aspects of memory might decline slightly, things like remembering names, older adults often have excellent verbal skills, problem-solving abilities, and of course, just a wealth of knowledge and experience to draw on.
That's such a great perspective. It's not all downhill from here.
Right. Not at all. We might have to work a little harder at some things, but we also gain valuable skills along the way.
That's so encouraging. It's like, yeah, maybe I forget where I put my keys more often, but I've also learned a lot about life.
Exactly. Welcome back to our deep dive into memory and aging. Picking up where we left off, let's talk about those practical strategies for keeping our brains healthy as we get older. We talked about how to spot those memory changes, but now I'm thinking, what can we actually do about it?
Right. We know what to watch out for, but now let's get to the good stuff, the actionable steps.
Absolutely. And one thing that comes up again and again in all our sources is staying mentally engaged.
Oh, yeah, they talk about that a lot, right? It's like exercise, but for your brain.
Exactly. So Medellin Plus mentions puzzles and games. Good for stimulating the brain.
And the Mayo Clinic talks about learning new skills. Anything from a language to a musical instrument, even a new type of cooking.
The point is to challenge yourself, I think. Don't just stick to the same old, same old.
Step outside that comfort zone.
Exactly. Try something new.
And they also mention reading Medline Plus specifically as a great way to boost brain power.
Oh, for sure. Expanding your vocabulary, keeping those neural pathways firing, all good stuff.
So it's not just about Sudoku then. It's about reading. It's about learning.
Right, right. And here's where it gets even more interesting, I think. Because it's not just about those solitary activities.
Okay, tell me more.
The Mayo Clinic really emphasizes social interaction for brain health.
So it's not just me and my crossword puzzle. I need to get out there and talk to people too.
You got it. Socializing can help prevent depression and stress.
Which, I'm guessing, aren't good for the brain.
Not good at all. Both of those can really impact memory and cognitive function. When you're interacting with others, you're using all sorts of cognitive skills, listening, responding, remembering details.
It's a workout for your brain.
Exactly. A social workout.
And that doesn't just have to be face-to-face, does it?
Not at all.
Yeah.
Especially these days. You've got video calls, online games, even social media can help us stay connected.
Right, especially if distance or mobility are factors.
Exactly. There are so many options.
Okay, I'm loving this. It's not about slowing down. It's about staying engaged, staying connected.
Right.
But speaking of slowing down, what about sleep?
Oh, that's a big one. The Mayo Clinic talks about that a lot. In fact, they mention studies that directly link poor sleep to memory problems.
So we need our sleep.
We do. And it's not just quantity, it's quality too.
Right. The Mayo Clinic says we need those deep restorative sleep cycles to let our brains recharge, process everything that's happened.
Exactly. Think of it like hitting the reset button for your brain.
Love it. Yeah. So getting into a good routine, having a relaxing bedtime environment.
All important.
And I'm guessing addressing any sleep disorders is key too, right? Like sleep apnea, if that's a factor.
Absolutely. Talk to your doctor about anything that might be affecting your sleep.
Okay, good advice.
Right.
And since we're talking about things that affect sleep, the Mayo Clinic also talks about diet, right?
Right. Lots of fruits, vegetables, whole grains. They're all about nourishing your brain with good food.
Giving it the fuel it needs.
Exactly.
And on the flip side, they're not big on excessive alcohol, are they?
No, not at all. Too much alcohol can lead to confusion and memory loss, especially as we get older.
So again, it's about being mindful, knowing your limits.
Exactly. And it all ties back to what we were saying earlier. Taking care of your physical health is a huge part of protecting your brain health. It's all connected.
Right. It's that holistic approach again.
Love it.
Okay. I want to touch on something else the Mayo Clinic mentioned about managing any existing health conditions.
Yeah.
Because they say that things like high blood pressure, diabetes, depression can all affect how our brains work.
Oh, absolutely. So if you're dealing with any of those, it's super important to work with your doctor to manage them effectively.
Because that's a big part of protecting your brain health too, right?
Huge. It's a powerful reminder that physical and mental health are so intertwined and that taking care of one supports the other.
Makes sense. So, am I hearing this right? We actually have quite a bit of control over our brain health as we age.
You got it. It's not just something that happens to us. There are steps we can take to make a difference.
I like that. It's empowering.
And speaking of taking control, I want to circle back to something Medline Plus mentioned about creating an environment that supports memory.
Oh, interesting. Tell me more.
So they recommend establishing routines, like always putting your keys in the same spot, or having a designated place for your wallet.
Oh, that's so smart. I can't tell you how many times I've...
Lost your keys.
Exactly.
It happens to the best of us. But the idea is that by creating those routines, you're reducing the cognitive load on your brain.
You're freeing up mental space to focus on other things. I love that.
And they also suggest using visual cues like labels and calendars, labeling drawers to indicate what's inside, or keeping a calendar in a prominent place to jot down appointments and reminders.
Such simple strategies, but I bet they can make a real difference.
They can, especially for folks who might be struggling with memory issues.
And even for those of us who aren't. I mean, I could use some of those visual reminders myself.
Exactly. It's about being proactive and building healthy habits that will serve us well in the long run.
Love it. This is all great information, but I'm curious, there's more to this story, isn't there? What about that sense of purpose that the NIH article talks about?
Ah, you're right. That's a key piece of the puzzle. The NIH article, Una mente bien envejecida, really emphasizes that having a sense of purpose in life is linked to better cognitive function in older adults.
I'm sensing a theme here.
It's all connected, but yeah, it's not just about living longer, it's about living well, with a mind that's engaged, active, purposeful.
So finding something that gives you a reason to get out of bed in the morning.
Exactly. And research suggests that this sense of purpose can actually protect against cognitive decline.
Wow, that's pretty powerful. So it's not just about games and puzzles, it's about finding something that truly resonates with you, that gives your life meaning. And that could be all sorts of things, right?
Absolutely. Volunteering, hobbies, relationships, work, anything that sparks your passion and makes you feel alive.
So if I'm hearing you right, it's not about trying to hold on to our youth, but about embracing the unique strengths that come with each stage of life and finding ways to stay engaged and connected with the world around us.
You got it. And that's something we'll be talking about even more in part 3 of this deep dive, where we'll explore the importance of mindset, resilience, and adapting to the changes that come with aging.
Ooh, can't wait for that. We've covered so much already, but I have a feeling the best is yet to come. Welcome back, everyone. We're wrapping up our deep dive into memory and aging, and I'm excited for this last part because we're talking about mindset.
Yes. It's a big one, isn't it? Because how we think about aging can really make all the difference.
Totally. It's so easy to, buy into that whole decline narrative.
Yeah.
But we've been talking about all these strengths that come with age experience, wisdom.
Right. Problem-solving skills, all that good stuff.
Exactly. So now I really want to dig into that idea of resilience and adapting to changes and, well, kind of embracing the whole journey.
Totally. And the NIH article, Una mente bien envejecida, talks about this beautifully. It's like a reminder that aging is a natural process. It has its challenges, but also its opportunities.
Right. It's both sides of the coin.
Exactly. And it encourages us to focus on those positives, the connections we make, the things we contribute, the wisdom we gain over time.
Love that. So much of it is about perspective.
So true. And one of the keys to aging well, both mentally and physically, is adaptability. Because as we get older, things change, right?
For sure.
Our bodies might not move as quickly, routines shift, we might face new health challenges.
Yeah, life throws some curveballs.
It does. But instead of, resisting all that change, we can learn to adapt and find new ways to thrive.
I love that. It's like that saying, you can't stop the waves, but you can learn to surf.
Yes. Perfect analogy. So if, let's say, physical limitations make it harder to do certain activities, we can explore new hobbies or, adapt the ones we have to fit our abilities. Or if we're forgetting things more often, we can use those memory aids and strategies we talked about in the previous parts.
Right. The labeling, the calendars, all
Exactly. It's all about being proactive. Right.
Thinking ahead, finding those creative solutions.
Right. So we can maintain that quality of life.
And we don't have to go through this alone, right?
Oh, absolutely not. The Mayo Clinic is really big on seeking support when we need it.
From family, friends, healthcare professionals.
Yes. All of the above. Talking to our doctors, sharing experiences with loved ones, even joining support groups, it can make a huge difference.
It's a good reminder that, we're not alone in this. Aging is something we all experience, and there's strength in community.
For sure. We're all in this together.
Now, before we wrap up, I got to ask about something I found really intriguing. The NIH article mentions laughter.
Ah, yes. Laughter is so important.
I always love a good laugh, but I never thought of it as good for my brain.
Oh, it is. It reduces stress, boosts the immune system, releases endorphins. It's like medicine.
Wow.
And it can really help us navigate the challenges of aging, I think.
Yeah.
Helps us maintain a sense of humor, find joy in everyday things, connect with others.
So make time for laughter. Watch a funny movie. Spend time with people who make you smile.
Yes. And allow yourself to find humor in the little things.
So laughter really is the best medicine.
It really is. And it can help us age with grace, resilience, and a positive outlook.
I love that. Well, as we come to the end of this deep dive, I want to leave our listeners with one final thought.
Okay. I'm listening.
We've explored a lot, the science behind memory, the power of mindset, the importance of taking care of ourselves.
It's been quite a journey.
It has. But I think the biggest takeaway is this. Aging is not a destination, it's a journey.
Love that.
It's a process of continuous growth and adaptation and discovery.
Beautifully said.
Yeah.
And it's a journey that can be full of joy and purpose and connection if we approach it the right way.
With awareness, with intention, with that spirit of resilience.
Couldn't have said it better myself. So embrace this next chapter, everyone. Celebrate your strengths. Never stop learning and growing. Because aging, with all its ups and downs, can be a truly beautiful and rewarding experience.
So well said. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into memory and aging. We hope it's been helpful and maybe even inspiring.
Yes. And remember, you're not alone on this journey. There's support out there.
Absolutely. So here's to aging gracefully, vibrantly, and with a sense of purpose.